countries and I have to be in the office. I cannot go somewhere else, you know, to be at the webinar. So that was a challenge.
In 2 seconds, we are going. Okay. So, dear friends, the Balkan Forum is starting today a series of discussions with media analysts and experts, civil society actors, diaspora and media representatives from Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, and EU member states. We will be exploring opportunities and challenges on various social, political, and economic issues with the aim of advancing regional dialogue and collaboration, internal reforms, and EU integration and accession of the Western Balkans region. For the first topic that we started earlier, I have the great pleasure to welcome Arberesha Loxha, the Executive Director of GLPS in Kosovo, Anto Jankovic, President of CEPS in Montenegro, and Milica Skiljevic, Project Manager from Belgrade Open School in Serbia. Thanks very much for joining us. We realize that this is a big topic and we may need hours to talk about it, but it's a beginning of discussions that I look forward to have with you in the future. Now, what we said is that we are going to explore different scenarios and possible impact of the elections in the enlargement process regarding EU integration and accession and internal reforms of the countries of the Western Balkans, and look into measures that may need to be introduced by the Western Balkans countries to build on momentum, as well as to respond to possible challenges that the future setup of Parliament and institutions may bring, including EU agenda and priorities in relation to Western Balkans. But we will be focusing primarily on what our countries need to do in relation to the new priorities by the European Union as a result of the elections that they just had. Now, I would go with the first question. How do you think, how big of a priority do you think will be the enlargement or Western Balkans integration for the European Union? The elections that took place on 23rd to 26th of May.
Who wants to start?
Arberesha, Milica.
Whichever, I'm okay.
Yeah, you can start now.
Sure. I think, do you want me just to have a brief comment on this, or
yes,
I say whatever I have to say?
Would be sufficient, because then we would go deeper into kind of exploring more the implications.
Okay, I think that no matter how the little wins of the far right or the liberals, the truth would remain that the Union is facing serious internal problems. I think Brexit on one hand, Hungary on the other hand, and numerous issues in between, considering Italy and Romania. So no matter the election outcome, the fragmented reality would remain. And I think most of the focus of the EU would be in solving its internal issues. And the Western Balkan enlargement or accession to the EU will remain of unpopular nature, in my opinion. So it will be up to our governments to change this and to make their case in the Brussels, as it is up to Brussels actually to deliver unexpected promises that they have been putting forward for years now, ranging from, in the case of Kosovo, from the visa liberalization to opening negotiations with new candidate countries. So this would be my brief and first stance.
Yeah.
Thanks, Arberesha.
I can further elaborate on this after they have their opening. Yeah.
Thank you. Milica, Anto?
Well, Anto, you want to start, or
I can continue, but if you want, please.
No, I mean, everything that Arberesha said already. The Union is facing, I mean, a lot of internal problems, and I think that the enlargement is going to stay low on the list of priorities. And especially, I mean, taking into consideration also the let's say, messages that our region is sending towards the EU with some certain actions that they're doing, and by letting bilateral disputes, somehow overthrow, let's say, regional cooperation and our stance, I think it's going to remain very low on the list of the priorities in the upcoming period. Just a very short comment.
Thank you. Thanks, Milica. Anto?
Okay, I can only agree with Arberesha and Milica, but I think now the point is primarily on us, meaning on the region, because EU is facing the problems, and I'm not sure that they will solve it in next 10, 15 years, and we cannot stand by, so we have to be more proactive towards the EU.
It requires more proactivity, it requires more a focused agenda on internal issues for us as well.
Yeah,
from you? Okay.
Yeah,
there is sometimes maybe contradictory statements, or maybe there is a contradiction on our understanding. You have seen what happened just a couple of days ago in terms of EU integration of North Macedonia and Albania. So there is some postponement on that to make a decision. On the other hand, what we were saying is that, or what is in public discourse and political discourse is basically look at the country reports previously, progress reports, and that means that if we are delivering on domestic issues, internal reforms, that means that we are kind of gradually coming closer to the EU integration and accession. Would that be something, an opinion that you share, or do you feel that there is no confusion, in fact?
Maybe should I start? I think the most important for all of our countries is to focus on internal issues, to solve the problems that we face in our societies. On the other side, regional cooperation is also very important, because we have different, totally large discourse of politics coming from different sides, like Kosovo, Serbia, Bosnia solutions, and we as citizens and civil society and other actors, we have to put this issue as more primary on the agenda, because we cannot, what we said, or what we agreed all, based on the first question, EU will not focus on the region, but we have to work on our issues primarily internally, but then also to solve regional issues.
Yeah, sure. So I said that enlargement topic is unpopular at the time in EU, and particularly because of the urgent issues of internal nature, such as Orban anti-democratic rule in Hungary, Poland's unconstitutional Supreme Court changes. So the Western Balkans come on a colder note, actually, after these elections, particularly. So the results did not offer a fantasized green light to Western Balkan population. What we have to do, actually, is that we must undergo socio-economic reforms. So those that have started should be moved forwards, and we also should focus on other important reforms and developments. But also, already with these 7 enlargement waves under the belt of the EU, EU will be rather more cautious when extending its borders and also welcoming new countries into the integration process. I think this is especially true after Romania and Bulgaria enlargement, and Hungary and Poland before that, which have raised serious credibility questions. But on the other hand, despite ugly duckling taking shelter in Eastern EU capitals, I think that there are also some success stories, such as the case of Estonia. Politico has reminded that it is increasingly the ongoing political ferment in some countries in Eastern Europe that carries in the promise of revitalizing the European project. So what candidate countries or potential candidate countries such as Kosovo should do is that we are expected to undergo reforms and show real progress in rule of law, in corruption, anti-corruption, actually, organized crime, democracy, and transparency, to prove that we are equipped for accession and ready for accession, and would be constructive new members of EU. At the moment, a wave of protest and important changes seem to be taking over the Western Balkans. We had the case of Serbia in December. Now we have the issue of mass protests in Albania, and anti-government protests organized in Montenegro. So, as you mentioned, Mr. Istrefi, that the decision on candidate status for the Albania and Macedonia was also a disappointment. Now we had also disappointment for visa liberalization in Kosovo. So all these are somehow, in my opinion, signals that right now Western Balkans do not top, on the contrary, are at the end of EU agenda.
Thanks.
I just may add on what both of you just said. When you analyze the situation, they're being cautious exactly because the process of reforms, in the case, for instance, of Serbia, it's going very slow. And as you, Arberesha, mentioned, I mean, with the last integration process of Bulgaria and Romania, it's of course going to be, they're even more cautious right now. And they do not, want to make, on one hand, a step, to make some decisions more fast, although I think there needs to be, some impulse from the side of the EU towards us as reassurance that they do want to see this region as part of the European Union. But on the other side, I mean, it's also coming back to us to show, okay, how is it that we are going to be ready to integrate ourselves into the European Union? Because so far, not just little progress has been made, but in some cases there was even, like going backwards in terms of the development of certain policies. So there is no right answer to this. I think, both sides in here, do have some steps, and games to play in order for something to change, I say, because this scenario is something we've been seeing, let's say, for the last year or two, and something needs to shift the whole perspective, I guess.
If I may add something.
Yes, please.
I think the key issue here is that we are going into a cycle, we're waiting for you to integrate us and then for us to solve internal problems. The problem here, I think, is that the countries or the governments do not have capacities. Even there is a willingness both from EU side to cooperate or from the governments, but in most of the cases there is no capacity inside of our administrations. And then if we wait for the administration for EU to solve the problems related to integration, I think we are just losing time. We will speak on the same issue in 5 years and there will be just small progress, but not some larger changes related to the internal situation, but also related to the integration process.
And I was going to ask the same question. Was it that we had false expectations in terms of EU integration? Was this the rhetoric by the politicians? Because that, is something that can be solved easily among the population in the Western Balkans and in their own countries? Or is it that, there's something here that people are not understanding, or is it too complex that is not one or the other? Maybe it's something different in there as well.
If I can add, I don't know, I'm not sure that there is not willingness from EU, even though using this situation that the EU has internal problems, So EU wants reforms. On the other side, most of the governments, okay, they are politically saying it, I think what I see, maybe Mr. Dacic, because I was in London last July, he's playing the game, or he's part of the Serbian politics, I don't know, But the issue comes related to regional administrative capacities, for each of the countries to solve the problems.
Okay, and let's say, I think we are having an agreement here that the EU integration will last longer than what we expected. So there was,
Definitely, especially in the case of Kosovo.
but I think even in what some of the countries hoped for, because we had a sort of deadline 2025, and to me that is not realistic anymore. That is not something that can be achieved.
I believe, if I may interrupt,
Please.
I believe only in a package integration, because the situation in the region cannot be solved even if one country integrates, because we are all around each other, So there will be no solution out except if there is a package integration. Okay, some countries will have more progress, on the other side, some less progress, but it's the only way. And on the other side, it's important also regional cooperation between the governments and between civil society actors and other actors from the region in order to make primarily regional integration, then go towards EU. Because we will speak about 2025. Maybe Montenegro is first or second on the list, it doesn't matter, but I don't believe in integration without Kosovo, Bosnia, Albania, North Macedonia, Serbia together, Azerbaijan.
Yeah, I agree with this, and I just want to add on this, talking about a package of integration and actually cooperating, and that makes our position towards the EU also stronger. I mean, if we look from that side as well. Not just that it's going to help us as well, I mean, within the EU, but I agree with that.
And that's a good point. I think something I share as well, but let's get back to that exactly in a couple of minutes. I have one question, and I don't know if people are struggling now, but if we are coming to realize that integration will not, accession will not move quickly. On one hand, are we going to have a lot of disappointment by us, by the politicians? And two, can we expect reforms? Can we expect a, let's say, more comprehensive fight against organized crime and corruption and strengthening rule of law and improving the quality of education and healthcare? Or do you think that if the carrot is not there, the stick is not there, then we may be seeing ourselves in a more difficult situation?
I think that the carrot will always be there somehow. The EU, despite offering us a very prospective enlargement perspective, it will still be present. Serbia and Montenegro are negotiating chapters. Albania and Macedonia and Bosnia are waiting for their candidate status. So we will keep waiting as Kosovo first for visa liberalization, because despite SAA, I think Europe for now EU in fact does not have any thing to offer to Kosovo as a carrot, unfortunately. So it's holding visa liberalization as a pressuring tool, or as a tool to have Kosovo commit in moving some processes forward, as it is the negotiations with Serbia and other important ongoing issues. So I don't think it will fade. It could discourage certain countries to make sufficient progress, but I don't think we will have a scenario where there will be huge disappointments, so countries would completely move out of or in a way slow down their reform progress and efforts. I think the poorest perspective is the one that Kosovo has, considering our isolation or complete isolation without visa being liberalized, despite that we had double number of criteria and all of them being in fact met. So I think this would be more or less my take on this.
What are the views of Anto, Milica or perhaps the leverage. I mean, in this
The leverage
situation,
is different.
in the near future, do you think the leverage that the EU has or has had will remain the same or increase?
What is the leverage?
No?
Let me.
Anto? Yes.
I think also we have to be clear that it's not just EU. You know, EU is our natural integration process. You know, but also it's important that there is UK after Brexit and US also pushing pressure onto the reforms. It's not just if there will be pressure from EU, but also there is or support from UK and the United States related to internal reforms. So I believe that the process will continue. So it's not just the carrot of Brussels, it's the carrot of the international players, which is very important for the whole region. So we cannot be disappointed if there will be no EU process, EU integration process in next 5 or 10 years, 15 years. It's the most important, you know, to provide internal reforms. On the other side, I have to say, as I'm coming from Montenegro, okay, Montenegro is leader formally in the process, you know, but still I'm coming back to administrative capacities, you know, because the point is that through EU integration process, we are just adopting different strategies, different new laws, but they are not implemented, you know. And what Arberesha said before, I think key important issue is here also socio-economic development, because when people are poor or where they are not economically independent, you know, you cannot expect social changes at the community level.
Yeah.
And what are your expectations from, let's say, for what we know now, the last summit within the Berlin process, and it's the one that it's coming up in Poznan, in Poland. It will take place on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of July. Do you think it will continue? Do you think, you know, the summits as they were will cease continuing, will stop continuing? There are other summits as well, but I mean, what had became known much more summits within or annual summits within the Berlin process. We have had 5, 6 with Poznan now. But there is no indication that there will be another one post that. There was an indication, clear one, before London.
I'm not sure if there will be another summit or the process, Berlin process will continue because of the situation also in Germany. But on the other side, the summit didn't provide some spectacular changes. The only issue is here that you have all the politicians or leaders of the country meeting regularly, but not some progress because we were involved in the London summit process. UK invested a lot of efforts involving also civil society organizations and all the media representatives and similar. But on the other side, all what was done on all these regional meetings organized before London summit, nothing has been discussed among politicians there. You know. So I don't believe that summits will solve some solution only in case that civil society actors and media and other stakeholders in the country, you know, put pressure on internal reforms and then on regional cooperation. Because politicians is always meet, okay, they will shake hands with European politicians, you know, but the most important for all of us is the situation in the region and in our countries.
Any other views on this? Milica?
Well, I think the Berlin process has had, I mean, some results, maybe not in the key top priority areas in which everyone actually launched the whole process. But when talking about connectivity, I mean, looking at the Regional Youth Cooperation Office and the whole process of how it was established, I think it's a good example on how we can maybe make progress in other regional policies, which are, you know, the, let's say, key for the region right now. And the Berlin process as such, I mean, has had its ups and downs, and even in bringing together civil society and then the government. And London, I think, completely failed because it was two separate scenes. And I mean, we just met to agree on everything that we agreed before. And as Anto said, the governments agreed to meet as well. It's good to have, I mean, regular meetings even between the governments, but it's highly important to have the civil society to put the pressure and keep reminding on everything, because simply having government officials meeting is just going to, okay, stating the obvious and reporting on what has been or hasn't been done. But this way, the pressure of civil society needs to be present at all times. I don't know if...
Hello?
I hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Hello? You. Yeah. Should have come here. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You're back now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Sorry, we interrupted you, Milica.
No,
So you were saying
no.
that civil society should play a bigger role in this case.
Yes, and that the whole concept of the Berlin process has had its ups and downs, but I think it was good in some sense.
Okay. Thank you. Arberesha?
Yes, I think I want to point out another important fact is that despite the EU elections, it is very important to consider the national elections and also the national developments, because they will directly put pressure on the leaders and the parties represented in the EU on their approach towards enlargement. And I think the results show that most of the parties that gained relevance, so gained more seats after elections, they are rather pro enlargement, except for the Macron's political party, which seems to be pro enlargement, but wants to take the things slowly and assure that whatever the enlargement will bring in the future, it will be correctly assessed and properly done. So I think all these will be also reflected in the summits. I think what EU has continuously done is that it made sure that it reassures the Western Balkan countries that their EU enlargement perspective is alive. However, I do not expect that these will bring any clear or dates as we saw in the past with the case of frontrunners, Serbia and Montenegro. So they will start. They will attempt to reassure the countries that the enlargement process will be alive, but they will be very careful in giving potential dates or clear perspective.
So you think that they will much better manage the expectations, right?
Yes, they will be very careful in that, in my opinion. But they will try to hold the hopes alive. But on the other hand, be very careful with the raising expectations too high, as they did, I think, in the past.
We are coming to the end of this conversation, and very short indeed. If we are thinking that we have a role, civil society has a role, we as individuals have a role, how do you believe, or what do you believe we can do to support the progress, to support the EU integration and accession of our countries? What would be not necessarily something different? It may be the same thing that we are doing, but do you feel that this is a momentum for us to reflect and maybe devise new strategies that have much more potential?
I think yes, primarily to cooperate between each other, on national and regional level, because all these issues are not solving. If there is a problem in one country, there will be always problem in the region. What Arberesha was saying related to protests in Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, well, it's obvious that there is also influence from some sides, international sides, you know, and there will be always problems in case we don't solve corruption in Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia, Albania, North of Macedonia, because as we heard, for example, at London summit, 800 million pounds, I think, of criminal acts come to UK, so from the region. It's a lot of money, criminal, and all other problems are just passing the borders. And so if we don't solve at the regional problems, all these issues, it won't mean a lot to Montenegro, for example, to be part of EU if we have problems in the same problems in other countries. And also, what's also important is that there are in most of the countries election next year. So we'll lose another year waiting who will be and what kind of the governments will be developed, and also to see who will be prime ministers, how important would be, for example, internal reforms on their agendas, meaning individual and meaning as political parties that participate in the government. Because unfortunately, I'm saying that my understanding is that the government should work as a football team, but I can see that in each of our governments, each ministry is a separate country, separate unit. You know, so that's another problem. What is also slowing down the process of reforms.
Milica, quickly.
Quickly, I can tackle on the civil society part, as we're always talking about that the governments in the region need a larger strategy. Also, civil society, I think, not just, you know, individual spin-off efforts in cooperation between civil societies, but right now I think, for instance, Serbia and Montenegro can have a great impact on civil societies in Albania and in Macedonia in helping them, you know, in preparing them for the process which is going to come, in how the reforms and the whole preparation, you know, needs to undergo. So in that sense, I don't know how right now, of course, but civil society also needs a larger regional strategy on how we can create some momentum, you know, and then put some pressure and actually influence the policies here in the region.
Arberesha?
Yes, I think civil society is definitely a crucial actor in the European integration process for each country, but regionally as whole. And this is also acknowledged by EU as such. I think our role is to keep the pressure up. And I agree with both Milica and Anto, that we should have a clearer strategy and build momentum, and also pressure our governments to keep the reforms high in the agenda. But also in the future, it's our role to keep putting pressure on our governments in the absence of high pressure coming from EU or other international stakeholders such as US and the UK. So I think we have a very big role to play. We should join forces and share experiences and cooperate more as a civil society across the region. Joint efforts are, I think, crucial in keeping the pressure up and building momentum in all of the 6 countries.
Thank you very much. It's 2 o'clock exactly. We started late, but we promise we'll keep it 40 minutes for now. Thank you very much. It was a really pleasant conversation. As I said, I really look forward to having other discussions on other topics in the future. Each one of them may be as complex as this one, but we'll continue and we'll see how can we build more contacts, relationships, and cooperate more between each other to advance what we believe is the future of our countries, and that is integration in the EU, and with that, delivering on all aspects related to reform, quality of education, quality of life in general. Thanks very much,
Thank you.
for the
and
invitation.
we'll be in touch.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.